Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review with a special evening briefing. Sort of a little bit later than billed. Forties out with their control out there in Budapest have pushed us back a little bit further than we'd like to be tonight. But I am proud and happy to say, proud? I'm not proud. I guess I am
Wow.
proud and happy to say that I'm
Wow.
joined by by Josh Barrie out there in Hungary, where he has been talking to Danny Rohl and Max Aarons ahead of the game against Ferencváros tomorrow. Josh, how's it been out there today?
You have a low bar if you're proud to be speaking to me at 10 to 8 on a whatever night it is. Fine, Blair. Yeah, we're gonna go through the kind of top lines, the headlines quickly because I'm about to get chucked out of this stadium. But as you say, speaking to Danny Rohl and Max Aarons, you can watch both of those on our YouTube channel. And actually quite an interesting chat. I think Danny Rohl's kind of let his results do the talking so far, which probably isn't so much of a bad thing. But a lot of detail tonight. He discussed John Souttar's contract latest, and we can bring people up to speed with that. He spoke about Nasser Giga. The good news for Rangers is that he will be able to play Hibs on Monday. There was some confusion as to whether that would be, he would have to leave to travel to the African Cup of Nations on Monday. Spoke about Dujon Sterling, provided an update, a negative update on Nadim Barami's injury, and also maybe something that myself and Derek will get onto on tomorrow's show. Spoke a little bit about why he's quite keen to keep the likes of John Souttar around, and actually went into a bit of detail about trying to build a core of the squad and why that's important at a big club to allow young players to flourish. Without that, he effectively said you can't have one without the other. So maybe if we can start on John Souttar and work our way through. I've still got you.
Yeah,
I have still got you, haven't I?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, got his ear. Yeah. On that news about John Souttar, he spoke up, John Souttar, in the press conference this evening. Obviously, there's been a lot of headlines around him this week about whether he's going to be at the club in the long term. I think a lot of the discussion, a lot of the discourse this year is about the fact that Rangers don't have a particularly settled back line, and the fact that a lot of the back line are either out of contract or the loan players. But the way that Danny Rohl's describing it is that he would like to have that little bit of continuation, that little bit of consistency, and a player like John Souttar, he thinks offers that.
He did, yeah. He was asked about his contract and whether Rangers have offered John Souttar a contract, and this is what he had to say. He said, the good thing about being a head coach is you have a lot of people around you who can sort contract situations. Since I've been here, John has been one of the core members of the team. He's helped us. He has experience in this league. He knows what it means to play Saturday to Thursday. He knows how to play at places like Kilmarnock. This is important because he knows what it means to play for Rangers. We need a core group. We need leaders who have experience. You can build young players around them. The full group is important. So let's see what the direction is in relation to John Souttar's future and the potential of a new contract. And the key line is there has been a clear signal from our side, so necessarily real detail from Danny Rohl on what that is, whether it's been a formal contract offer and how long that would be, but certainly an indication that he wants to keep him in the building as opposed to letting him go. He then went on to discuss Dujon Sterling as well, and spoke up Dujon Sterling quite a lot, called him a special player. And effectively said he has the bravery to play for this club, but we need to build him up. And he's seen that in training, but we need to build him up so that his body doesn't break down and he can play consistently for Rangers too. Because they have a bit of an issue at centre-back coming up with Souttar still out, with Chico going away, leaving really only Manny Fernandes and Clinton Ciala and Dujon Sterling as your centre-back options, and James Tavernier perhaps to play in there as well. But certainly the clearest indication we've heard from Rohl yet that he would like Souttar to stay. I think he recognises that he needs more leaders and more kind of senior leadership in that dressing room. From his point of view, Souttar is one such player that he'd like to keep in the building if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can understand why Danny Rohl is coming at it from that perspective. He's obviously trying to build a bit of a new squad at Rangers and build something from the bottom. And it's really hard to do that just by basically wiping it all off and starting again. He needs some sort of building blocks that have been there in the past to carry that through line. And he needs something to work with because, let's be honest, he's not going to be able to sign 11 new players. He's going to have to work with some of the things that were already there. So John Souttar, if he sees one of them, can maybe be one going into the future. Maybe one of the worrying worrying top lines that came out of this press conference, Josh, is the injury news. Nadim Bajrami, he said, is worse than we originally feared, and that's something you never want to hear from any manager in a press conference, but he just joins the long injury list that Danny Rohl has got to contend with at the minute.
Yeah, he does. And I guess the thing that makes that news worse is that Rohl actually said, and Nadim Bajrami himself, I think, felt when he came off the pitch at Rugby Park that it wasn't too serious. And I think Rohl described it. Did he describe it as precautionary post-match? Was that the word he used? More precautionary than thinking it was anything serious. However, the scan has shown worse and more negative than the initial news. Asked Rohl on the potential timeline for that. He said it's going to be a week-by-week thing. It's another muscle injury, which he also discussed, because that's a number that Rangers have. Now, a lot of those have been picked up on international duty. Perhaps it's just down to the extent of games that Rangers players are playing at the moment. They're also, I think, playing in a more intense style. Could that perhaps play into it? But Bajrami was just kind of coming on to a bit of a game, wasn't he? And he didn't last long in that Kilmarnock fixture. And I'm sure he will be cursing his luck because he's not had the opportunity. And as soon as the opportunity comes along, he pulls up injured. So he's had that scan. It's not been positive news. No definitive timeline on that. He obviously wouldn't be in the squad tomorrow anyway because he isn't in the European squad. But it might be a little while before we see him. Lyle Cameron has travelled, but there's some doubts over whether he's going to make it. He obviously hasn't played that many minutes lately regardless. No Joe Rothwell, and there was another player reference, so I'm going to have to go and check because I can't think off the top of my head. It was Joe Roth and Dujon Sterling, sorry, he is back. He wasn't in the squad at the weekend, but that was because of the artificial surface at Rugby Park. Danny Rohl says that he's been responding well in training as he looks to make his first appearance since Atletico Club in the Europa League back in April.
Yeah, it never rains, but it pours this season. It seems to be how we just sat on Saturday morning discussing how Nadim Bajrami seemed to be one of the only chinks of light in this team that was coming through when it was going poorly. And then when he walked off that pitch on Saturday night, I think we just looked at each other and thought this could only happen this season. That the only player where you're seeing any sort of positivity from him gets injured early on and is taken off. Like I said, a game of whack-a-mole this season, Josh. One thing good happens, another thing bad pops up that Danny Rohl has to contend with. But one slightly positive note that Nasser Jiga, although he will be leaving for the African Cup of Nations, Rangers will have him for that game against Hibs, we believe. Danny Rohl giving a little bit of an update on that tonight as well.
Yeah, because he's going to AFCON, there was some doubt whether he'd make the Hibs game. Obviously, the Hibs game is on the Monday instead of the Sunday because of the League Cup final. And it's also at night as well, so that led, I think, a lot of people to believe that he probably would miss it. However, he's expected to be available for these two games coming up, the game tomorrow night and the game on Monday night. Danny Rohl did say on Dujon Sterling that he would get some minutes tomorrow. Didn't say where they'd come, whether that would be starting or whether it would be coming off the bench. I think he might start him, and I think Rangers might play a back three. If not, he might come on in that back three because that's what Ferenc Varos play. They play a back three, and it's a tricky tie. Again, Derek and I will maybe speak about it a little bit more in depth tomorrow, but they could go top. They're a point off top of the Europa League group stage, and Rangers are still a point off the bottom. So Dujon Sterling expected to play some minutes tomorrow. Obviously, Clinton Ciala isn't in the European squad. Manny Fernandez is. Nasser Jiga is. He will be available for Monday, and you presume that Dujon Sterling will be getting minutes tomorrow with a view to probably starting. You'd expect on Monday, because I think if Ciala was going to start that game, he'd have had some minutes by now, and he hasn't domestically, which makes me think it's probably going to be Manny Fernandez and one of James Tavernier or Dujon Sterling on Monday night.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I feel like Clinton Ciala, if Danny Rohl really fancied him in this starting 11, he would have gave him a chance by now. You also spoke to Max Aarons this evening, Josh, just quickly touching on what he said. I know he was quite high praising of Mikey Moore this evening, saying that he can really start to flourish in a Rangers jersey after that well-taken goal against Kilmarnock, and probably should have had a second as well. What was Max Aarons saying to it tonight?
What was he saying? We've not spoken to him in a while in a press conference setting, and he was at pains to point out, I think, that Danny Rohl has tried to simplify his game, tried to get him to play forward more, because that's been a criticism of his game from you more than anyone else, I think.
Yeah. From me in particular, I think, yes.
Yeah. But also referencing the fact that confidence has just so important here. And he used that as an example for himself and Mikey Moore and Bojan Miovski as well. He feels like he's had a bit more. I think Aarons has been better since Danny Rohl came in. Again, he's probably not been helped by playing loads of different positions and left back to right back and not playing at right back all that consistently. But also something that came through in his press conference is the fact that he's probably not showed any close to what he would deem his best level. Again, anticipate he probably plays some part tomorrow night. Where will it be? Will it be right back, right wing back, left back? We don't know at the moment, but you can watch that on the website too, and on the YouTube channel, and read it on the website. But another player who's come out and said that what Rohl's tried to do is simplify things, and managers do that. The new manager bounce is very, very cliche, but certainly from his point of view, that's helped him to get over what was a pretty disastrous start to his Rangers career, but also Rangers as a whole collectively at the start of the season. And a lot's framed by tomorrow night, Blair. If you can get a positive result, then maybe your last two games in Europe aren't in vain. You're playing for pride and glorified exhibition games in the final two if Rangers lose tomorrow night. If they can get something tomorrow night, then you never know, because you've got Ludogorets at home, but they'll have to be a lot better than they have been in European competition. And again, I think that came through Max Aarons' press conference.
Absolutely, Josh. And just one quick one before you get manhandled out of that room with about a minute left. He also spoke to the Ferencváros manager today, and if anyone doesn't know, that is, of course, ex-Celtic forward Robbie Keane, who will be well accustomed with these shows. He was just to add that little extra layer, if Rangers needed any more on this game, he was quite complimentary about Danny Rohl, as far as I could see, that he said he steadied the ship a little bit when he was talking about Rangers earlier today.
Yeah, he didn't talk a ton about it. Obviously, one of the topics for Robbie Keane was he was quite heavily linked to the Celtic job, and he was being asked about that, and would he like to manage there in the future? But yeah, it was pretty complimentary of Danny Rohl. Obviously, I hadn't watched a ton of Rangers before that because this game's been so far in the distance, but he's done a good job. He won the title last season, having won a title in Israel the season prior to that. He's got his team top of the league, and Ferencváros are sixth in the division. So sixth in the Europa League standings. They have a striker who scored 9 goals in, I think, 9 starts in Europe, whose name escapes me off the top of my head. You might be able to tell me, or I'm going to have to go and look up. Varga, I think it is, who's Hungarian international. But Rangers have only scored 2 goals in this competition. Only one side has scored fewer than that. Rangers are still averaging the highest chance creation against in this competition. So it's going to be a really tough test, because Ferencváros have beaten RB Salzburg away from home. They drew away at Fenerbahce last time out. They won away at Genk, and they only dropped points here in the opening day of this campaign, the Europa League campaign, in large part because they went down to 10 men in the first half. They also beat the Goretz here, who Rangers will play next time out. They actually don't have a load of the ball. They've averaged the 5th lowest possession share in the entire Europa League, so that's 36 teams, only about 44%. So maybe that will suit Rangers if they give a little bit more of the ball over to Ferencváros, because there may be a side who likes to attack a little bit more in transition. And it's not the biggest stadium in the world, but you sense it's going to be loud because it's steep stands, and it's a club that's in a good place. And it's been in a good place in Europe for a couple of seasons now. So I think one of the tougher ties in this Europa League group stage for Rangers. They've made a tough tie of every tie so far. And I think it is actually quite a big game, because, as I say, if you lose this, then the rest of Europe becomes a drag, and potentially a bit of an embarrassment if you're talking about finishing with 1 point or 2 points. If you get something tomorrow night, maybe that can start to prompt slightly better Thursday nights for the rest of the campaign. But given what we've seen so far, I will hold my breath until we see some evidence.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, we'll let you go. I know you'll be joined by Derek tomorrow morning, hopefully live from some lovely little Hungarian cafe, soaking in the culture. But for now, enjoy your evening out in Hungary. I'm sure Derek will be out and about with the Rangers fans that are there. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight for this special evening briefing. But for now, thanks for watching, and thank you for listening.